Hello, beautiful listeners. It's your host, Tembi Locke. Welcome to Lifted, a podcast that pulls back the curtain on creativity, resilience, and the extraordinary moments when everything changes. Today, we have the absolute delight of spending time with someone who is just as vibrant and dynamic as the world she has built around her. Pia Baroncini, founder, creative director of the clothing label LPA, creative entrepreneur, podcaster, and mother, is someone I've admired for a long time. Not only for her impeccable style, but for how deeply she connects people, food, and culture. In our conversation, I found myself drawn to Pia's stories of family and travel, her love for Italy, obviously, and how she created a life that merges work and personal authenticity so beautifully. Relentlessly driven and curious, Pia describes how coming up in creative and entrepreneurial communities in downtown New York shaped her into the powerhouse she is today. From hanging out with graffiti artists to launching direct-to-consumer brands, Pia is a testament to following your own path, even when it's unconventional. If you're navigating the push-pull between work, life, and creative passion, or you're wondering how to merge your personal life with your professional aspirations, this conversation, it's for you. Pia's insights on living authentically and doing it all while staying true to yourself will definitely give you something to think about. Hello, Pia Baroncini. Welcome to the Lifted podcast.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations to you. So I have to begin because this season we're talking about travel. Where are you right now for our listeners in time and space?
I'm in my bedroom. I live in Pasadena, California.
I want to talk about your first memory of travel. Meaning, I know you were born here in Pasadena. And did you travel a lot as a family? Did you, was it road trips? Was it car trips?
My dad had me at an older age. I'm a product of a second marriage. So he was very active with my siblings. And they did a lot of camping and skiing and going to lakes, and the vacations that we had growing up were wherever my dad could have a Mai Tai and be horizontal. There was a lot of Palm Springs, a lot of my parents used to rent a house in San Juan Capistrano. Those memories at the beach were really cool because I think it was 2 weeks we would rent this house, and you could become very close with all the people who rented around you. And so that was really cute. It was so much barbecuing, and I was very free to kind of run around. And that was really nice. But my parents did a lot of vacations on their own that I was not invited to, which I respect and love and will absolutely do, because they were very romantically intertwined and used those trips that were bigger and more important to keep the romance alive in their relationship.
So your dad, who you've talked about, and your dad was Italian American, your mom born here in the States? Okay, Denmark. So a mother from Denmark, an Italian American
opposite
father. Beautiful combination here. And so did Italy loom large in your home as an energy, a concept, a place, a destination, aspiration?
Have you ever seen the episode of The Sopranos when they go to Italy?
I've seen every episode. Okay, now let's drill deep because I understand this. So was it Italy is venerated?
It's all what? There was Paulie was sleeping with some girl, and he was like, "Oh, you're from blah blah blah." He's like, "My family's from there," and she looked at him like, "Yeah, so what?" You know what I mean? He's like, "But my or how he was Tony was asking for sauce, and they were like, "What is so?" So I grew up like that. I grew up very American Italian. My grandmother was her sauce was such a big deal. They were members of the American Italian Club. We had Sunday dinners, Christmas was we had she made homemade calamari, and she would make these Italian cookies. I mean, it was very always growing up, you're oh, I'm Italian. I'm Italian. It's always this whole thing. And then I didn't go to Italy until I was in my like mid to late 20s. And then I was like, oh, this is buried, and then I started dating Davide and I was like, oh, these are two. So we talk about it often, like Davide's like being American Italian is in itself a very important, very real, very specific culture with very delicious foods that are impeccable, that just are completely different from, I mean, like it's just different. So yeah, the whole Italy thing was really funny because they had like, and now David, we live in my childhood home, and Davide's like the way that your dad like designed the house, it is to feel like it, like,
Yes.
but he, there's like lemon trees and there were grapes growing and the thing and the da da da. And Davide's like, I see what your dad was doing, and he's like, I feel at home here.
Thank you for sort of pointing that out. And I'm sure many listeners will like completely get that, because it was one of the things with my late husband, Sato, when he was sort of like, Italian Americans. He was like, and let me unpack what this is,
I know.
because he said it's like a Xerox copy of a Xerox copy of a Xerox copy. So I know that early in your career, so you grew up in Pasadena before Davide comes in, which we're going to talk about. Before he comes along, you grew up in Pasadena, you moved to New York, you spent a decade in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this journey for you as a young woman, how old were you when you went to New York?
18. I went for
Okay.
college.
So 18, launching, journeying from Southern California to New York. What were you looking for, and what was that decade of your life like in terms of your the arc of your development?
I liken myself to this character who was the lead in a movie called Rushmore. That was like, it was one of Wes Anderson's first movies, where it's a really incredible, funny, smart. It's Bill Murray's and it's an amazing movie. But the lead is like in every activity at his, it's about a high school kid. He's in every activity at his high school. He's like best friends with the principal. He is like in meetings with staff that he shouldn't even be in because he's a student. Like he's such but his grades are really bad. And like that was me. So I was like really creative and involved in a great deal of club. I wrote for the paper. I did the morning news at my school. I was ASB activities director for 4 years. There was like so much that I did, but I just had like very average grades. And this was at the time when school like had just gotten very hard to get into. Like this was 2005, and it was like just those years. Like USC was like a safety school for my brothers, where like when I was a senior in high school going to USC, they were winning national championships. They like wanted to make it into an Ivy League school. So I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like this is, and even my college counselor at school was like, yeah, I don't know, girl. Like, so I applied to like 25 colleges because I was just like, there's a place for me. Of course, I don't think there's not a place for me. Where it is, I don't know. And because I knew that like beggars couldn't be choosers, I was like, whatever. But I ended up getting into Parsons, which is like insane.
And
Because
for listeners who don't know, Parsons, design,
yeah,
fashion,
I got
aesthetic.
into Eugene Lang, which is under the new school. Parsons is the fashion program, and Eugene Lang was the like I was doing like writing and media there, and then so it was like, oh my God, I got in. And then it was just like, oh my God, I'm moving to New York. And I had like 3 months to kind of wrap my head around that. I had a boyfriend that I had met when I was like visiting the college. Then we like kept in touch on like MySpace. And then he came, I said this like a bad boy boyfriend who like went to Parsons, who was like a pot dealer and and a student and like was just like and wrote graffiti, and he was like gorgeous and bad, and I loved him. I'd never had a boyfriend before, and so he, like, I didn't go to New York and like hang out at clubs and meat packing and like have like a really traditional school experience, because there is no campus at the new school, and there is no true sense of like it's just very like independent cool kids. And I ended up just hanging out with a bunch of like people who had clothing brands and all the guys that worked at Supreme and a bunch of skateboarders and like a lot of graffiti writers, and I hung out at like those kinds of bars. And like I'm thankful that I had that experience, because I didn't hang out, like, I think if I had gone a different route, I would have been very like finance bro-y, and I hung out with like only like the creatives, which truly like shifted and shaped my life for those next 10 years, because it gave me permission to explore all the creative projects that were normal for that group of people, where it wasn't normal for the people that I grew up with who were living in New York. So I spent 10 years like grinding and hustling and doing tons of different jobs. And I ended up working at Reformation, like, People's Revolution, and then Reformation. And then that's like how I got into fashion.
It's what I love about that story. That locality was just like really vibrant and so informative. And sort of, I can see, set you on a path for a lot of creative exploration. Did you always know that you wanted to work for yourself?
No, I was just like, what the fuck am I going to do? And then I was just like, this is a wave I have to ride. And so I never like stressed about it or worried about it. I didn't have these like crazy goal. I was just like, I'm here, I'm working really hard. I'm just going to see where this takes me. I think I knew that I was at the crux of like, everything is shifting now. Like, all these big direct to consumer brands were launching in New York. My like cool friends that I would party with had like created the companies that were like building the websites for these brands. So it was very like cool to like party and hang out and kind of be like a derelict, but also during the day you were doing like really important work. And that combination was really cool.
What I love about this idea of, some people would call it live hard. I mean, play hard, work hard, play
I don't
hard.
think this is a healthy thing, by the way. This is just what my personality is. I'm not like advocating for it.
You're not saying everybody go out and do this.
No.
But okay, so when did you ever like question that, or did you come to a place where you made peace with like, no, this is actually this is how the creativity flows. This is actually the making of the sauce.
Well, when you live in New York, it's like you just like insert and go, so that felt like really like it's hard, like living here is really hard for me. I really want to move back to the East Coast.
So one of the things that I noticed about you is that you have your several businesses, but they all rely on you,
Yeah.
Pia, as the main driving creative force, and also the brand itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you do to sort of remain true to Pia, yourself, and also the business? And for you, is there any separation?
No, and but that's where I think businesses should come from. Like I see so often so many people are like creating a brand that they think people want. But like for us, this works because everything is so authentically us. Like I don't have I'm not like some sort of genius like other people are in the way that I could create something and make this whole world and like bring it to you. For me, also, it comes from like laziness. It's like I don't like, I can take a photo of the olive oil at, like when we have people over for dinner, and like that's the, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like, it's just everything is like, I have a women's clothing brand. David has a men's clothing brand. His clothes are what he wears. My clothes are what I wear all the time. Now we're going to offer you for Baroncini, like all the things that you need for your home that like it's like the plates and the tablecloths and the, all of that. So it's just all like a very natural extension.
Is your specific goal in the things that you bring sort of sharing place, sharing Italy, sharing an experience?
I'm not necessarily somebody who like, I don't want to like live in Italy, and I don't think anybody else needs to like share Italy. Like it's like we've shared it. And I think what everybody wants to do, which I completely understand, is like we were looking at a TikTok. I was looking at a TikTok and some girl was like, I discovered this secret beach in Puglia. And we were like, you think that you discovered a beach in Puglia? Like, no, you didn't. But what is magical is like what it comes down to is that everybody wants to experience something that feels authentic in Italy, like because it is such a magical place. And I truly get it. But like Italians don't necessarily know how to handle that. Kind of like what happens. But I think it's the odd thing is like in America, people are trying to find these small, authentic squares and communities and to feel that feeling that you have in Italy. And then Italy's like, oh, we got the tourists, let's bring in the big gun, and I'm like, no, that's not what, it's like a funny, combo, but I think I don't think that we're trying to necessarily like sell like some sort of like Italian, because there's like now like 1 million Italian brands. Like but I think like what we're literally just trying to do is like, I feel really good when I have a table that's set that makes me feel really pretty, and that it's plates that I'm eating on for years that have memories. Like I love that yummy, warm, homey feeling. And I think a lot of people weren't raised like cooking and cooking for friends.
Oh, definitely not in this United States of America, and certainly not of the last 30 years.
Not at all. I'm really lucky I grew up that way. And so I think like that's kind of like, it happens to be Italian because that's how I grew up and that's where Davide's from. But I think just having friends around and gathering over food is really just like the important part.
That's the mission. That's the goal.
What you love about Italy is no matter where you are, by day 2, you're friends with the guy making your coffee. That's like many other countries, also outside of Europe. Like that's the Bahamas.
100%.
That's like,
Yes.
So that's just what we're chasing.
But that is also a cultural offering that, for those who can't maybe travel to Italy or, south of France or small place in Scotland or, wherever, can find a gathering space. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
You want to go to a restaurant or something where people know your name and they remember you and you feel like you're a part of something.
I'm going to pivot a little bit and just talk about, we've touched on it, but the role of travel in your life. And so, how would you say that your relationship with travel, and by the way, I guess what I mean by travel is there's a difference between travel and journeying. Like you can travel somewhere and just literally move your body to a different place, but to journey into a place is a different experience. And so, you do a lot of work travel, but you seem, at least from the outside, that it's also some journeying that you're doing as well.
We're having a tough time with this right now because this last trip we just took, we did, you know how it goes. If you go to Italy, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in Sicily. Your friend in Milan is like, when are you coming to see me? So Carmela's godparents are in Milan. Davide's manufacturer is in Umbria. His family's in Sicily. And then now 3 of our vendors are in Sicily on all different parts of the island. And then the first week of the trip, we did an LPA trip because I was like, I can't just go on a trip. I need to also make it a work trip, which was nice because it was with friends. So I'm not complaining by any means, because the fact, if you would have told me 10 years ago, this is what my life looked like, I would have been like, you did it. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's a lot of, if we're hosting, then his family's like, and they follow us on Instagram, so they're like, you're at La Pina? Like, why aren't you over here? Like his dad, we land and he's like, you ashamed of the house? Why aren't you bringing your friend? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like, these are our friends, but it's also like an influencer trip, Dad. So like, we can't we're not going to bring these people over to your house for a coffee. It's like, which it's like, and I understand him not understanding that. But what's funny is like, we wake up and we're like, fuck, like, okay, now we got to get in the car and drive 2 hours. Okay, Carmel's crying, or she needs to eat, or her diaper needs to change. I'm uncomfortable, whatever. But then and we're fighting because this is stressful. But then we stop at our favorite place for lunch, and then we're like, ah.
Yeah.
We're with Senor Grasso up Mount Etna eating our favorite meal. And he's lighting a cigar at the table, and he's like, how many babies you got in there? It's like, then all of a sudden we're like, it feels at home. So every day is like crazy stress to make sure that we're getting everything done and pleasing everybody. And then these moments of overwhelming joy, nostalgia. His mother passed away, so going there and having it feel so different without her, it's really intense. But since we got back from that trip, it's been like a month. We're like, can we go to Italy and have a vacation? Like, like
Yeah, I think that, I think that's what you're saying is really important for many listeners because between this, what you just shared now, and also the TikTok conversation, there's the sort of idea of what the trip will be,
Hmm.
and and then boots on the ground. It's an uneven experience. Meaning, you're like, where am I? What am I doing? I'm stressed. This isn't working out the way I thought it was going to work out. And then you drop into grace, and then
Hmm.
it's off again in the stress, and then you drop into grace, and that tug and pull is a lot of what happens when we're traveling, whether for work
Absolutely.
or for personal. Even if it was for a vacation, it would not be dissimilar. What do you do to activate your senses? One of the beautiful things about Sicily, the island itself, is it's so sensorial, and it's just like it's the wind against your skin, it's the sun, it's the sea, it's the sounds, it's the taste. It's literally hits you in every way. Are there things that you like go into a trip thinking like, I really want to experience new things on the palette this time, or I want to try, various skin products? Is there something that, or is it just kind of organic?
It's organic. Like I think we've done a good job of like tacking on. We didn't do it this time. We were supposed to go to Marsala and we were going to rent a house. We rented a house for 3 days there, and we were supposed to just be like phones off away from the world, and all of our meetings got shifted. And so we ended up working those 3 days. But like we're usually really good about what we do is like we'll tack on 3 or 4 days somewhere where we've never been. So like last time we were there, we did Cefalù. It's not a place where Davide has been. He's from the other side of the island. So like the year before we went to Ponza, which I'm a Ponza ride or die now. So that's like really what we try to do is go to the places that feel really familiar, make him feel good and safe. Like he has to see his people and and then we try to have a couple days where we see like a little corner where we have never been. And that's like what, because we want to buy a place there, and we're just kind of trying to figure out like where that is and like what that means, and like where we want to, like he would love to buy a place up Mount Etna. And I'm like, that's not happening. Like,
You don't want to live near an active volcano?
nope. I
That
don't
doesn't
like
interest you?
the shaking and the ashing and the fact that everyone's just walking around when you can see no.
So this podcast is called Lifted, and
Mhm.
I always like to ask my guest to name someone who has lifted you up, or who inspires you,
Oh, my
or
husband.
who has, what's that?
My husband.
He's your lift. He's your
Yeah,
lift. 100%.
that's my
Yeah.
person. Yeah. We do it to each other. Like last night, what I was watching something on TikTok. Last night, it was like I always watch this like compilation of this like these like athletes. And I come from like a family of athletes, but I never did sports. And Davide obviously played soccer, and he's like, it's an integral part of being a human that you have to play a group sport. And I avoided that like the plague. And he thinks that I would have benefited so much from doing a group activity and knowing the limits I could take my body to. And like, it's very important for him with the kids and whatever. And so I was watching this compilation of this athlete like trying over and over again at like an Olympic tryout or something. And I was just so impressed, it like made me emotional. And I was like, look at this girl whose whole life is this sport, and like where she's taking her body and the team that's rooting for her. And I like kept watching it, and I was like, I don't have a regret or a desire to be an athlete, but I was like, I wonder what I could have done if I had, I wonder the limits I could have taken my body to if I even explored that or whatever. And Davide, I know I'm mentally strong, but I don't know if I'm physically that strong. And he was just like, you could do, he's like, you could do it now if you wanted to. He's like, I've never met anybody stronger than you. You could do anything you wanted to. He's like, you absolutely could have done something fantastic. He's like, you didn't because you're on the path that you need to be on. But he's like, I believe that I mean, it was like, so he was just like, absolutely. And then like the other day, he was like, I want you to pick a hobby, and and I was like, I don't have time for a hobby. I was like, we're about to have a second child. But he was like, I think it's important for you to like explore different, like he just always wants to like, if we're talking specifically about
He's always lifting up and seeing
Mm-hmm.
those pieces. I think the people in our lives who are able to see parts of us that we don't see or that we are not quite yet ready to cultivate, but they're there to sort of say, yeah, go for it. So this is a perfect segue to my question, which is about, it's a grief question, but I am a firm believer. So much of my book is about traveling back to Sicily, a place that I already had an existing relationship, that I already had a relationship with, a town and a family and everything.
Yeah.
But in grief, it looked different. And in
Mm.
grief, it changed my understanding of like my why for traveling there and what it gave me. So I know you have talked openly about, the passing and loss of your dad, about the passing of Davide's mom. And you hinted at it in our earlier, which is in traveling to Sicily now, on the other side of a loss, what does travel offer you when you go there?
I mean, it's still it stings still because she was the glue of his family, and he does have a combined family like I have. And so, I mean, that's why, like, when my dad passed away, we just were like, oh, we have to save the house because like my dad was the connector between this our big combined family. And so if we lost the house, I'm like, I don't think any of my siblings would like offer Christmas like we do every Christmas here. I was like, we would lose us all. So we're still trying. It's the emotions, the amount of like random crying and deep. He's still grieving that really intensely because it shifted everything. It really shifted everything. So home doesn't feel the same to him like his house because she used to just the way she used to take care of it and so it's like it's really hard for him, but he obviously feels so happy to be home in the just seeing what's like the same, like those types of things make him feel really safe. But truly right now, I think he's still in the grief process because like we last time we were there, we went to his like old soccer field and he like fell to his knees. He like left and has been, if you talk about hard work, I he like when we met, like I've, I've never met anybody who worked like he didn't take days off, like dating him was really difficult because there was literally no time and because he was just like, I have to get to this. So he just dove into life and work and making something from himself.
In loss, particularly traveling back to a place that's a place of origin and also the epicenter of the person that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're reclaiming, but
Yeah.
you're also revisiting and it's activating again. And your grief in some ways stands still
Mm-hmm.
until you're back there, and then you do another deeper sort of dive into it. And so I think for people who are willing to do it, I think it's an important part of the process, travel, but it also knows that it's not like because people are like, oh, you're going to Italy this summer, that'd be great. I'm like, I can't explain to you that
I
it's
can't
not a
imagine what it's
trip
like
to
for you to go
Italy.
back. I
It's
can't
not a
imagine.
trip to what it is it's a journeying inward. And I need time alone.
I'm sure even like every taste of something, every experience. I mean, I'm too pregnant for that. I cannot imagine you going back there because I know what it because this is what like when we talked when you came on my podcast, it was such an emotional mess because there's just I know, but I'm sure it's the same experience for so many people when you like fall in love with someone and then you get brought into their culture. It's like all these things, like a bite of something is like you remember that experience with that person. Like I cry when I walk into his mom's house because I'm just like, oh yeah, like, they're just like this whole person is. I mean, I cry all the time about my dad, like if we go to a new restaurant or just like my dad would die over again if he saw the life that we had here. Like he was so in love with Davide. He was so in love with him. And Carmela, who's like, what is this like angel like all those things just like bring you back to like in
Yes.
the joy, you're like, something's missing, you know?
What I love about what you've shared, and I hope what listeners will take away, is this idea of you are holding space for all the connectivity. You're doing it personally in your own life. You just said by holding onto the house, it becomes this place where
Mhm.
people can gather. But then you're also modeling that for other people, which is how can you create these spaces that allow people to connect and gather? And like you, I too am looking for that place in Italy, in Sicily for myself. And what's interesting for me is it's charged with all the past stuff and the loss, but it's also charged with the love and it's holding a place for my daughter.
I was going to say, your daughter, you also are like such a incredible example of, I think when we think of grief, people think of just like this part of your life just stopping and what you it and being able to fall in love again and then raising your daughter and then turning your story into something that has touched millions of people is, I mean, that is the true essence of life.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Sitting at our cafe that is hopefully next to his store, and the kids are working there and I'm working there. Everyone's working.
Well, first of all,
But
I got such chills from that. And I think it touches me personally because that was also a dream we had. And I want you to have that dream because I want to sit in that restaurant. I will be your regular Thursday night guest. My daughter can be your hostess and speak Italian. It will be so beautiful. Pia, I cannot thank you enough for your time today.
thank
I
you.
send you with blessings and grace and joy and all the good things. And may we all be lifted. You lift us up, and thank you. Lifted is developed, written, and produced by me and my one-woman producing team, Celia Cates. It is edited by Jamie Moss. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next inspiring episode.